Hello, welcome back to Stars and Stones Painting Show. I'm Amy, your host, and this is what we're going to finish working on today. I'm going to finish putting the white in the spaces where the constellations of the circumpolar realm, the circumpolar area of the sphere. And just standing in this field of color, it feels really good. Like just this area right here, when it's lifted up a little, I've got to protect what's going on right here. Something's great. It's working. I'm not sure about this line right here. I mean, there's a few things I'm really not sure about. Definitely not going to have this beige stucco. So we're fixing to gray that out, and we will put the white in here. I might also do some work putting this constellation grid. This is the, I haven't talked about this in a while. I'll go ahead and give an update. This is the celestial sphere of the Earth, kind of cut open, and one piece is this way, one piece is this way. So there's two globes, but it meets, so it's not completely cut. It's just representing the ability to get inside and see it from many angles and many perspectives. I'll be right back. Let me go get the tea. Alright, here I've got the tea. And this is the, let me just show you the other one too, because it is that good. Matcha Love green tea and Pucca 3 ginger. Now I'm not going to use this blueberry one right now, but I'm just using this Tazo organic chai. It's really good. I'm going to use one of those and 2 of the gingers because it's going to need it to power up that chai. I usually put 3 or 4 tea bags in one that size, but that's like 2 cups of tea. 1 for the pot, 1 for each cup. Alright. Alright, get in there. Alright, so I've got my white paint and I'm going to start putting this in. This is the Horse Maiden. It is very feminine, and it's definitely a horse. You know, I've drawn these characters so much now, and I've looked at them so intimately from so many angles that I really can draw them from memory now. I feel that is so cool. Not all of them, just mainly the circumpolar, because I focused on those first. as a funny aside, the Orion character, so all the other characters are walking like this. But the Orion character has its foot up like this. And it's definitely, like a 3/4 turned foot. There was definitely an understanding of drawing in the third dimension. And I do think that some of the need to keep things so rigid and the same, even in sculpture, from drawings from the beginning, created beautiful works of art that did not need the third dimension, obviously, to get the point across. And sometimes it's easier pictorially. You can do a lot more, right? You're not thinking about everything. It's just the same. This stands for man for 5,000, 6,000 years. This stands for man. And this little turn back hand here, when I first saw it, I was like, what the hell is that? I started drawing these hands. And I've done this several times, even when I was working on the pose of this character, like, who would draw that? This character is walking, bent over, her head is missing, and her arms are hanging down. I can't remember which one's in front. Okay, this one's in front. So at first it's the beautiful hands hanging down. I thought they were maybe claws. The first pictures I had of the disc were not very good. So we will move on to Lyra, that has the star of Vega. It is the heart. And here on the Dendera constellation, it is a man holding a mace. And oddly enough, the star that is Vega is right below the star that is Polaris, and they are actual opposites on the precessional cycle. This is precessionally correct. Now, there are a lot of questions I have about precession and exactly how it works and exactly what celestial bodies are at play. It's never been like 100% described to me in a way that doesn't sound a little janky. Not in that I don't think it could be that way, but it just doesn't seem to describe all the motions Um, okay, there's a couple things that have, the sun is moving. How is it moving? And I've talked about this before. Is it moving in a straight line? Is it moving like a snake? Is it moving up and down? And I know that it is moving around the galaxy, maybe, up and down every 200, maybe it takes 240 and it takes 50 to go up, or 50 to go, million years. But I'm talking about just the smaller cycle that the sun is moving in. Because even if it's going like this, it's still, doing something. What is it doing? And the thing that just keeps coming back to me is when I see a bottle rocket move. Like the star is born and it starts spinning and it's just moving like this. So our sun is actually, moving in a circle, and we could be at this point or this point going around it. Now, I don't know what that distance would be, the circular movement of the sun. Stars are binary, they're, moving around each other's center of gravity. We possibly have a binary star ourselves. And so I'm thinking about how the sun moves, and if we are, traveling in an arc, or even if we're doing this, what's the distance between? There is a lot of difference between going like this and going like this, because if you're going like this, right, you're going to be changing direction. So the stars that you're seeing now, you might see them to the side if you're going like that, or you'll see something from the back. They're like, well, whatever you were seeing from here, by the time you get here, you're going to see it from the back because you're going to be going down. I don't think that happens. So, if our sun is moving in a circular movement from possibly Orion in this beautiful kind of wave movement through the galaxy, going around, and also possibly moving in some kind of a spiral-like movement, I picture as a burning ball of gas with a center, moving kind of like if you were in the tunnel of one of those, slides that goes into a corkscrew. So it has, it's on one side or the other of an arc that it keeps making. Now, when we are on this side, the sun is on this side of that circle or this side of that circle, that means the earth would be here or the earth would be here. If you're clocking the same, okay, on blank and blank day, when this many days have passed, where is the sun? It's gone from here to here in a movement going like this, right? So that distance must not be too great, whatever it's traveling, whatever it's doing, because these star stories are very old, for at least, I'd want to say at least 80, 50, 40, at least 40, 1,000 years ago, these stories, animals, stars, coalescing, this one, that one, okay, we'll call it this, coming down to what we have today is our 88. At this time, I think there were 48 constellations by Ptolemy, if the Dendera Zodiac was made during the Ptolemaic dynasty. If it was made 1,000 years earlier, it could have still happened, because all of the characters from the Mulapin, the is it Babylonian, Mulapin, Sumerian, Sumerian. No, I can't. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Sumerian, Mesopotamian, Sumerian. The two you know, rivers, Euphrates coming through there, and we see the Cancer scratching crab. That's the start of the whole thing. So we have Cancer, Gemini, Taurus, Aries, Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, Sagittarius, Scorpio, Libra, Leo, and then back to Cancer. If I left anybody out, I'm sorry. But anyway, so all those are there. Now those are not Egyptian, okay? In the early tombs of Seti and Pepi, these were not in tombs. These are in some coffin texts, some coffins as early as, 2000, maybe even 1500, 1400, but very few. And it's just really interesting to wonder how all these characters came together. And at this point, as I may have said before, I'm wondering what is Greek about it. Like, they're all in Egyptian clothing. There's only one character that has kind of a short hair. It's kind of round here, like it's definitely short hair. And this person also has what I would say might be a leopard skin across their chest and a longer skirt. I'm taking that as a priest or a priestess. Now that person's at the very beginning, which would make sense. They come up maybe second or third, after the pharaoh, and then Horus as the pharaoh, and then the priestess with the deacons, and those are right under the Sothis cow. So those are Sirius, and of course that's why that's what the Egyptian calendar was created on, the 3 seasons. And those broke down and had different names. And I think that would be interesting also to correlate those possibly with the, not, merge animals or anything like that, but just to see if any of those matched up, to see if there was a previous correlation between the 2 areas. They're so close. They are surrounded by a desert and a little strip or a sea, but there are ways to get there. It's probably easier just to go, well, then you have to go up. Yeah, anyways, never mind. Let me get back to painting. I'm going to listen to a story for a while. This is Osiris, Lord of the Dead, by Mythological.
I think the most important caveat we probably have to keep in mind is the information we have on the gods and the worship system of ancient Egypt come to us almost entirely from the official cults and monuments erected by the Egyptian state, rather than individual devotations from the average man and woman. So how most of the Egyptian populace actually would have related the Egyptian gods is kind of difficult for us to determine, and today we're really limited to the official view of Egyptian religion that was propagated by the pharaohs and various rulers of that nation. So to the best of our understanding, many of the Egyptian gods were considered as representing natural forces within the world, and indeed their forms and many of the ideas of ancient Egyptian mythology seem to have influenced geography of ancient Egypt, which is appropriate. Because ancient Egypt had an unusual geography. It's quite similar to ancient Mesopotamia in that Egyptian society existed in an area that suffered from very, very low rainfall. So it was surrounded on both sides by a desert, which came to really symbolize chaos and disorder within that system. And actually, ancient Egyptian society very much depended on the Nile River Valley for its existence, and specifically relied on the annual flood of the Nile, which would deposit fertile silt onto its banks, on which crops could then be grown. So, kind of a simple form of irrigation that the ancient Egyptians then improved upon over time. These circumstances very much influenced the Egyptian pantheon, as did things like the passage of the sun. So, if you're in ancient Egypt, the sun rises in the east, passes through the sky, and sets in the west. And from this, we get the basic idea that the sun god, Ra, was reborn each morning in the east, traversed through the sky during the day, then either died or descended into the underworld in the west, where it would remain until the next day. As a result of this, the west bank of the Nile very much became associated with the underworld in Egyptian mythology, and it's for this reason that many of the elites of Egyptian society would choose to be buried on the west side of the Nile. So the exact origins of the Egyptian gods go back into its prehistory. To the best of our knowledge, many of its later deities seem to have originated there as local gods prior to the unification of Egypt. And some of these then went on to absorb other local gods and to take on prominent roles within the later Egyptian pantheon. Lower your property.
Oh, shush. I love these stories, but you do have to get through the commercials.
Exactly when this more unified
Turn it down just a little bit in case it's too loud.
it could be associated with the unification of Egypt as a single state during the early dynastic period,
T.
which took place during the late 4th millennium BC onwards. But we know for a fact that it seems to have been firmly in place by the end of
I
the
gotta
early
get cream.
dynastic period, around the beginning of the Old Kingdom of Egypt, around 2700 BC. So during this period, we see plenty of evidence in iconography for the existence of figures such as Horus, Set, Hathor, and the fertility god of Men. And we already start to see very different types of representations of deities appearing from this point. So during my reading, I kind of came across the idea
Gotta check the
that
time.
Egyptian deities became more anthropomorphized
Let's see.
over time, became more
Ooh, 23 minutes. We still have about 7
I have
minutes.
seen other accounts and descriptions of ancient Egyptian religion that make
Oh, back to something I was saying earlier. I was talking about, the sun moving. What way does it move? And I'm thinking about it moving like this. And so the earth is over here, the earth is over here. Because the sun is here and here. So the earth is right here. And we're clocking it at this point. And at this point, the earth is pointed at, let's say, Polaris and Polaris. How much difference is there between the Polaris here and the Polaris here? Is it enough to notice? What is this distance? turn my story back on.
To rubbish this idea and claim that all these forms have been in some form of existence since the very beginnings of the unified pantheon. So it's a little confusing. I'm not going to go too much further into that. As I mentioned before, by the period of the Old Kingdom of Egypt, many religious conventions became more formalized. So the worship of the gods became more formalized. The temple layouts of the period became more formalized. And from this point onwards, we really know that the gods were generally considered dangerous natural forces by the Egyptians, and that they had to be appeased in specific ways by the populace in order to avoid their ire. Each of these gods would be venerated in the form of this cult statue, which was held within its official shrine, and was attended to as if the statue itself was alive. So again, a very similar system to that is what we see in ancient Mesopotamia, where each god or goddess had their own cult statue. During this period, the worship of many of these gods and goddesses continued to be associated with specific towns and centres, which in some cases were likely where they originated, even after the introduction of this more unified pantheon. One major development within Egyptian religion was that much of its practice became centred around the role played by the pharaoh, who in life was equated with the figure of Horus, who was the Egyptian god of both kingship and later the sky. And in death, Pharaoh was similarly related to Osiris in his role as the ruler of the dead and as the father of Horus. The rule of the Pharaoh increasingly also came to be seen as a requirement in order to maintain the normal cosmic order of Egyptian society, which is a concept referred to as the Ma'at or Ma'at. Again, probably completely butchered pronunciation of that.
I was going to say Matt.
Ma'at, yeah. And much as when the kingship was disputed between the gods in different periods of Egyptian mythology, it was believed that when the ruling pharaoh was unable to perform both his secular and his religious duties, chaos would once again be unleashed throughout Egypt, as epitomised in what's known as the three intermediate periods of Egypt, where centralised rule broke down retracted periods. So the final thing I really want to note for the sake of this episode is that whilst this resulting religious system was polytheistic in nature, so it worshipped a wide variety of different gods who all had their own official cults, there was usually at most times in Egyptian history a prominent or a chief god. So throughout Egyptian history, examples of this include Horus, Ra in his role as the sun god, Amun, and particularly in the late period, Isis also became the paramount goddess within the Egyptian system. And a detail that is perhaps most important for us and for our telling of the Osiris myth is that it was entirely possible for the gods of ancient Egypt to die, just like the mortals that served them. However, and this is a very important however, just like their worshippers, the death of an Egyptian god did not mean that their existence came to an end, which probably I believe we're going to be discussing in some detail today.
Yep, that is the plan.
Now that we have some understanding of the generalities of Egyptian religion, I think if we are to discuss the Osiris myth and put it in its proper context and the role that he played within the wider religious system of Egypt, we probably also need to follow on from our last point and discuss the Egyptian idea of the afterlife.
Yes.
Alright, that part's done. I guess I better start a new video. I'll see you in a minute. And we will work on the outside one.